What's up, family? Thank you for tuning in to the DreamNation podcast. My name is Casanova. I'll be your host, and I'm excited to be bringing to you entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and trailblazers from around the world. Stay locked in with us because we're about to go on a journey that will change your life. What's up, Dream Builder? We are back again with another episode that I'm excited to bring to you because today we have on the line somebody that's going to give you not only wisdom and inspiration, but also the tactical things of how you can change your habits to then be able to make your vision and your dream become a reality. So without further ado, please help me in welcoming my brother, Mr. Andre Young. Want to go ahead and say...
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate being here, and you guys listening. Thanks for letting me steal some of your time.
Yes, absolutely, my brother. Hey, so I always love to make sure that we give the proper introduction. And the way that I do that is I compare us as entrepreneurs and thought leaders, change makers, to superheroes. And the reason being is because we're constantly flying around the world. We're putting on our cape and we're trying to solve some of the world's biggest problems. So I know for you, you have been a speaker for a long time. And you have been flying around the world solving some of the world's biggest problems. But here's what I want to say. I know we all know who Superman is, right? We know what he does, but a lot of the times we can't really describe that Clark Kent behind the scenes. We don't really know who he is, right? And so we know a lot of people will know who the Superman is that's Andre Young in front of the scenes. But behind that S on the chest, tell us, who is your Clark Kent?
Wow. I love the concept because I'm big on superheroes as well. And you're right. People know who we are. And too many times as leaders, we over-identify ourselves by saving the world or saving or whatever cause we are. And that self-care part of any leader listening to this is being able to take that cape off and find solace in being Clark Kent, find the joys in being Clark Kent, and knowing how to take care of Clark Kent, because he needs it too. She needs it too. When I take my cape off and I love setting it down, I'm a father of 4. I'm divorced, I'm remarried, and the lessons that I've learned through my journey, through my youth, through my boy days to evolving into a man, elevating from being an employee to a manager, because we all manage before we know how to lead, to a leader. I love escaping as Clark Kent with my kids and my family. When I'm with them, I don't feel, I'm still creating. I still have great ideas, but I put it in my phone and I put my phone down and I get to be with them. I get to be part of their dream. I have my 2 boys play sports, 1 basketball, 1 football. My daughter's a musician, and I have a 1-year-old. So I have a 21-year-old, an 18-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 1-year-old.
Wow. So you got some great babysitters, so you can get out when you need to.
Yeah, pleasantly it's busy. It's not very spontaneous, but it's fun. And my wife and I, we have a good time. And once COVID is over, depending on when you're listening to this, I can't wait to get back to exploring this beautiful world we live in.
Yeah. No, for me, I got 2 young kids, 1 9, and then my daughter's 3. But it feels like I got a 15-year-old and a 21-year-old, and the 3-year-old is the 21-year-old. So that's what's so crazy about it. But man, I definitely hear you there. I mean, when you take off that cape, and just like you said, we all love to, and I think that comes with just the power of being transparent, being vulnerable, and being real, right? Being authentic. Because a lot of the times, what people show up as, what I found, is not really who they really are, because they feel like they have to paint a picture, right, of what society is saying that you need to look like or you need to be. So I appreciate you sharing that. Let's take it back.
If I could piggyback really quickly, the power of the consistency. And that's one of the things that I found in being a professional speaker and leadership trainer and author, is that whatever your dream is, when you immerse yourself in it, and you become consistent with it and you love it, it starts to become who you are, because the language that you're using, and I call it personal leadership. It's how we show up to our life, our work, and our relationships in a way that makes people want to follow us, because they enjoy and respect how you are and who you are. Not only when you're on that stage, one of the biggest disappointments is when you meet your celebrity, the person that you admire most, and you meet them at the airport or you meet them at the store, and they're not how you picture them being.
Right.
They're not how they are when they're doing their definition of greatness. And I implore us all, let's not be fake about it. Live personal leadership. Whatever you're great, to be great in all of the aspects that you play. So when they bump into you, because as a leader, you don't know who's watching. They're all watching. So whether you see my videos, you read my book, I did a training in your organization, you saw me on stage, when you meet me off stage, when you bump into me at the grocery store, when I don't know you're looking, am I still the same?
I love it. I love it. Let me ask, let's take it back. Have you always been somebody who has been deep into personal development?
No.
Like, I know that you have a story. Take us back and tell us a little bit more about your story. Allow us to be able to connect with how you got here today.
To answer your question simply, was I always a person into personal leadership? No. I was not always. My company is called You Evolving Now. I was not always Mr. You Evolving Now. I grew up in inner city Philadelphia, and I was fortunate where my street, I grew up in the middle of the street, so to speak, or the top of the block. And you go one way, it was heavy drugs and violence, and we had a mobile police station that couldn't leave that corner, or else all heck would really break loose. And it didn't stop, but it would really just break loose. Up the street was more pleasant. So my parents, who were together at the time, always drove in us go up the street. When I started to get into 11th grade, and all of a sudden I started getting into this trouble. And the problem was because I was the good kid where I was from. And what did that mean by good? I wasn't killing anyone, I wasn't selling drugs, and I wasn't getting arrested. So I really didn't, everything else around me was going crazy. And then when I transferred, I went to 2 different high schools, and I transferred from a really smart magnet school. I had a really hard time with ADHD. I didn't know it at that time. So I failed a lot of classes. I remember getting 4 F's, 2 D's, and a C coming out of 10th grade. And I remember my mom looking at the report card, trying to figure out what this letter F was, and I had 4 big ones. And then I went to my neighborhood school, my neighborhood public high school in inner city Philly. And it was the worst in the city. I probably went to school once a week for half a day that year. I played sports. I couldn't play because of my grades. So I played semi-pro and football. Youngest person that I know has done it in at least that area. I was 15 years old playing running back with grown men, and it was quite the experience. But because I had a dream, once I picked up a football, I fell in love with it, and I married it. And whatever your dream is, I encourage you to marry it. And if you're married, you know that there's things you love to do and there's things you need to do to keep it going. So needing to do one of those things was go to school my senior year. So then I played and got scholarships to go to schools. I accepted a scholarship. Now I'm in college, and now I'm getting in heck of a trouble because where I was from, this is normal. What do you mean I can't do this and that? I was just out till 2, 3 in the morning at 15 years old, and now all of a sudden everything that was the good kid I'm getting in trouble for, and much more. And it wasn't until my 3rd year, my junior year, that I figured out, one, how to study. And I looked around, and everybody that I came with, 90% weren't there anymore. And I said, well, I've swam too far to turn around and swim back. It's time to finish. And like that, things started to click of what I needed to do from a personal leadership standpoint about my dream and what it was going to take to do that. And not to say that it went smoothly, because I went through a whole lot more after that. But that was the click of personal leadership. And the other big part of that is I learned to stop being great only by my definition. Most people are not even willing to do the things that will make them great by their definition. I want this, but I have to do this, this, and this. No, okay? I was okay with wanting this, but I'm going to do what I want to do and what I believe would make me great. And what takes us another level of leadership, of living your best life, is it what's the person who would receive my effort, is it what they need? So whether it's in sports, I want to be stronger, but my coach needs me to read defenses better. So I'm getting stronger, but I'm not meeting my coach's deepest need. Therefore, I might still be on the bench. You might still be on the bench, getting better at what you want to get better at, having a temper tantrum of, look how much I do. I need to be respected and what I deserve. It could be in your relationship. You're giving this, but they need that.
Right.
It could be on your job. I'm giving this and I'm willing to do this, but they need that. So let's get out of our own mindset. Let's put down our ego. What do you want to be great at? What are you willing to do? Does it match the deepest need of the other person receiving it? And you marry the two and watch how life takes off when you do it consistently.
Man, so much wisdom, so much there. And I want to tackle the first thing that I know people are wondering. And this is something when I first heard you say it, personal leadership. I don't know if I've ever heard anyone say that. And I feel like I'm pretty big into personal development. No one's ever said personal leadership to me. Define what personal leadership is and how do we all start to get on the path to be great at personal leadership?
Personal leadership, I define, like, so many people are focused on leading others, and whether it's your kids, whether it's a team at work, whether it's a sports team, and most people can follow what you say, because if I don't, then there's a consequence. Can we lead if we're low man on the totem pole, and can we have people inspired to do things more and forgive about us and our mistakes based on how we carry ourselves? And how we carry ourselves from a personal leadership standpoint is a lot about our language. And it could be as simple as, what exhausted me and really was a big part of my business when I first started was language. Ask most people how their day is, and you'll find very quickly who you're talking to. Oh, I'm living the dream, just another day. Or they're TGIFing and it's Monday, Our language is great. So what we choose to say, how we even choose to respond to that question. I live in my positives and I manage my negatives. So we got to be cautious about the words that we're using, the things that we're saying in here, the things we're saying out of here, because what that will do is it impacts then how you feel. It impacts how you think. It impacts the consequences thereafter, negative or positive. So how the languages we choose, and I'm big on bully language. And it's in my newest book, 7 Ways to Lead. Here's a couple when we talk about language: but, if, can't, try, just, only, should, deserve, and happy. Those are huge bully words that not only bully us and our thinking in our life, but also our people, the people that we're talking to. Hey, Cass, I'm sorry I did that, but you, if I make it to the NFL or if I get that raise, you're bullying yourself. You should have, or I should have, or I can't, or I'm going to try. That's a big one that gets so many people. People come and tell me their dream, and I've counted 5 tries that they said in their 2 sentences. I don't believe you. And just like I don't believe you, neither do you believe you.
Yo, no, I definitely, it's so funny. I did a podcast earlier and they'd asked what's on my background for my phone right now. And I said, I have my 3 goals of what I'm going for this year. And what's powerful about them is I think that the most 2 powerful words in the English dictionary is am and will. I am. And the way that I came up with this was, it was, for me, everything stems back to being a father, being somebody who grew up without a father, and how now having a 9-year-old son. That's everything. That's how I leave this legacy. And so I am a great father. So that leads from my mindset to think differently, because if I'm ever in a time where I'm doubting myself or I'm wondering what is the right decision, I say, what would a great father do? I am a great father, so I have to make those. So that was a very powerful switch, and I've never even heard that before. I'm sure somebody else is like, oh, that's really good. Those words that they'll have to rewind and then write all those words down and say, that is a bullying word. That's something that... Right. That I can't say to myself. And so I love that you shared that. And I definitely got to write every single one of those words down. And I heard you say trying, happy, deserve, like all those. And I'm like, oh, those are good. If you can reframe the way you talk to yourself, that's everything.
And I call it under the umbrella of construction talk, like happy. Everybody likes to be happy. However, it's not appropriate to be happy all the time. There's value in our other feelings and being frustrated, angry, sad, and mad. And when we could keep our eyes wide open, going through those other emotions we deem negative, there's so many lessons in that. Who gets to be happy all the time? It would be inappropriate in certain instances to walk around being happy. And, deserve. It's not, well, I deserve that raise, because the fact is you don't have it. You didn't get it. Instead, the question is, I want to be great here, or I would like this. What do I need to do to get it? And then can we be quiet enough to listen? And then whatever the answer is it reasonable, doable, and fair for who you are and what you want? And then you do that, marrying what you want to do and what they need. And then we move forward. So, construction talk not only works with us saying it to ourselves and us saying it to other people, whether it's at your job or in your team and in your house. It's also what you say away from them. My second book, 7 Ways to Love, there's a chapter I talk about no matter who I meet, I speak positively about my wife to them. She's not there. Obviously, it makes sense for me to say great things to her. But when I'm away from her, well, I say the same. And when I say those things, not only does it prepare me to go home more in love, it's also built up me in their eyes because I'm talking great about a relationship that I'm a part of. And thirdly, when my wife is now around this person, I'm not a fake. Sometimes we put our spouses, our boyfriend or girlfriend, in this negative situation where you've talked trash about them to anyone who would listen at your job. And then now the company party's here. You're all hugged up with them and everybody's looking, well, why are you with them? And they're thinking negatively and you feel it and they don't. So construction talk. My sons play sports. One of my sons was in the car with me and he had a friend in the back. And the friend said something about his teammate. He then started complaining about the teammate. When they got out the car, I asked my son to stay back. And I said, son, as a leader, please do not do that again. Whether it's your boss at work, a teammate, you defend your friend, your teammate. Hey, this is that. And if you have nothing to say, you can say, and this might be for your boss. I've done this as an employee because employees need more skin in the game too. Well, I can't believe the boss did that, or I can't believe the player did that. Hey, I'm glad I'm not in their situation. That must have been really hard. And nobody meant to miss that tackle. I wonder how they feel. Or the boss might not even enjoy the project that he's rolling out. But however, he got to deliver, or she has to deliver it to us with a smile. Glad I'm not them. And then walk away. And people start to get trained, so to speak, by you on what they can speak to you about and not about. They know not to bring negativity, gossip, vile stuff your way. They'll go talk, believe me, they will go find somebody else to share that with. Right. You've now set an expectation that it's not for you. And your name doesn't get drawn into it. So much about it is how we walk into a room, how we engage and attack everything with positivity, the language that we use, and how we treat people, building them up in front of them and away from them. All the while having a great expectation of winning, whatever that definition is.
There's so much there that I definitely want to unpack. But the first thing that came to my mind was you talked about how when at one point you had to make a decision. You said, I've came this far and I can't stop now. A lot of the times I think where people struggle is because their environment then must change. Because as they are growing, as they're evolving, that then means they have to leave people behind. And I think that most people struggle with that. Talk to me about when you were coming up and you decided to make this decision, how were you able to shift your mindset to everybody can't go with me on this journey?
It's a great question, and I actually talk about it on stages. I never thought that I'd be doing this in high schools. However, high schools and adults need what I'm about to share as well. And I'll preface it by saying I don't always believe that we need to cut people. I've only cut one person, and the person I cut was the hardest for me. But I think it's very rare that we have to cut people. However, I do believe that we must modify how we hang out with people and be willing to add other great people to our lives. So I call it like the 5 steps out of unwise relationships. And I'm going to, I won't go over all 5. What it is at some point, you're going to get to a point where the things that you're doing and who you're doing it with has become lackluster for your life. When I moved away from Philly and I started to become more professional, and now I have jobs and I can't hang out and do the same things I was doing at 15, 16, 17 years old, but a lot of my friends still were. And it doesn't mean that they were bad people. And it certainly doesn't mean I'm going to cut them, because I'm going to be honest with you. And we all know this. When the ish hits the fan in your life, those are the guys and the women that would be there first for you, no matter what. So I don't always believe you need to cut them. You have to modify. So I said, well, this is really lackluster. Do I still value them as people and do still want them in my life? If the answer is no, then it's easy. Cut them. Be done with it. If the answer is yes, I still have feelings and I still love them, however, something needs to change. Right. And this is how we change. One, we spark the change. We don't need them to change. And we wonder, what is it that we're missing? So I didn't want to go and hang out on the corner anymore. I didn't want to go to the same spots. I was dressing different. I look like I got money. We could be in a life-threatening situation, me hanging out with the new me, with the old you.
Right.
So now what do you want things to look like? Get that vision going. So I said, instead, offer an idea. Hey, instead, I'm going to come down. Let's do lunch. Let's do lunch downtown. I want to start going to nice restaurants. So I offered the idea. Some people may say, okay. And it'd be easy. Maybe they've been thinking about switching things up. They just weren't as brave as you to offer it. So some people will start going. And for me in my life, I know that if I was hanging out with my friends at 12 a.m. to 2 a.m., there's trouble to be had. However, how much trouble can I get into over lunch? Not much. And I could be back on the couch with my family and my real life, in my life, and everything's good. Nothing to lie about, nothing to get in trouble about, no consequences, good. So lunch downtown, who's in? Whatever your lunch downtown is, who's in? Some people will come, some people won't. And so whoever comes, comes. You have a good time. You can still keep in contact with your people. And then you start expanding your life and saying, okay, put yourself in some different circles. I started going to networking events. Okay, so it's professional networking events. And now through social media, there's so many groups you can join, whether it's on LinkedIn, Facebook, there's no reason, join them. And at that time, I guarantee you are going to bump into someone that you come away with this feeling. And it's, wow, I really like how they are. Wow, I like their vibe. And instead of trying to sell them something, let's have a call. Let's go for coffee. Let's do this. We have a conversation. And I can't tell you how many people that I've met that way. Not many, but I've met people that way are still in my life today. And it's not about business and selling. It's about the connection. So I call it being 8 again. When you're a kid and you see kids, you move to a new neighborhood and you see kids doing what you like to do, you just say, can I play?
Right.
You just say, can I play? And your parents say, well, what's their names? You're like, I don't know.
My son just did that last week.
Right. Who are they? I don't know. They were just doing what triggered them, what sparked for them. Find other people. You got to put yourself, as adults, that we have to put ourselves in that environment. And then there's going to be these sparks. Maximize that. Now, you haven't really cut everyone. You still have your people. And every other month, I go back to Philly and I say, hey, we're going to meet for cigars, or somebody's house, a friend of mine, there's 2 or 3 of us or 4 of us, and we can sit down and have a great time. However, I also have my new people that are my business entrepreneurs, thought leaders. And my rule is this. Please steal it if you like. I want to feel inspired, motivated, fun, and idea-filled and lucky to have spent time with someone before I meet with them, while I'm spending time with them, and after I've met with them. And if all 3 don't check that box, I was excited to go, but when I got back, I felt dirty. I didn't feel like I liked it. Or, if all 3 boxes aren't checked, we don't hang out. So that was the real transition for me. And about cutting people again, it may not be their time to evolve. There are people who I've distanced myself from and created a safer space for us to have a relationship. And all of a sudden, 20 years later, I'm 44 now, 20 years later, they're in the spot that I was 15 years ago. And now we can re-hang out again. Sit there, have a great lunch, a cigar, and a drink by myself and be just fine. So don't cancel it because other people said no. You could create your own. My business didn't start off being a professional speaker. I didn't even want to speak or write. And now I can't stop speaking and doing engagements and shut up about it, or writing books. So when I first started it, I created an organization, and at the time it was for men. It was called Men Evolving Now. And once a month we'd get together in my living room, and it kept growing into like hotel spaces where we would, come and talk about topics and leave better than just relieved. And then we would have a go out night, and it was with safe company. So you could create your own. And it's amazing what it might evolve into. So don't not do it because the people won't come. Believe me, they will. And then you'll find other people that are attracted to it too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure somebody's out there wondering, and they say, man, he speaks with so much elegance. He speaks with so much wisdom, so much moxie. But when you first started out, what was like the books that you read? Like, what's the book if somebody says, hey, I want to be on your path? Give me 2 books for the next 6 months. Actually, in the next 30 days, I'm going to read 2 of these books, and this time I'm going to start my personal leadership journey. What's those 2 books you're recommending?
Wow, that's a great question. It's hard to answer. I read all the time, and I suggest be a nerd. Whatever your dream is, be a nerd about it. Don't have anybody know more than you. Constantly be learning. The first book from my path, and I'm going to be very specific and niche it down, Leadership and Work-Life Harmony. I talked with this gentleman when I first wanted to start doing work with corporations and impacting them. Didn't get the contract. However, I got so much more. And he gave me a book called The Dream Manager.
Yeah.
And he said, I want you to read this because this is the type of thing I'm looking for and want here. Now, I was new to what I was doing. So it was all about this gentleman in the company. He hired another person to be a thinker, to come up with ideas that impacted their people on a professional and personal level. And I was like, wow, I love that. And if somebody in that book wrote about that and the company did that, there's millions of other companies throughout the world that are willing to do that. How do I do it best? What do I have to offer to allow this to happen in my life? So niche down, it was that one. Another one that really stands out for me, I really can't narrow another one down. The Dream Manager was really, really big for me. I like...
Your son's 21. He's trying to evolve, right? He wants to be on dad's path. What's that besides the Dream Manager, right? Yeah. What other book, and outside of the Bible, I know a lot of people will say the Bible, but outside of the Bible, what's that other book that you say, son, read this?
To be very honest, and not to be cocky here, My 7 Ways to Love. Okay. And the reason I share that here, I'll give 2 books: The 7 Ways to Love, and The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman.
Yeah.
The 5 Love Languages, I love because it can apply to so much. It's life-changing, and it can be very simple. 5 ways that people like giving and receiving love. And typically we love lazy. So the way you like getting it is the way you'll give it, but it might not be, again, the way they need it most. So knowing what everyone in your life's top 2 languages are. So I sat down at the dinner table and I went around the table. Here's what they are. Here's the 5. Which 2 are you? Which 2 are you? Which 2 are you? And now I know, because once you know, you can't unknow.
Right.
And you have to ask continuously, maybe annually, because things change. You change. People change. So you don't want to be loving them off of their old language. And in my newest book, I do the Leader 7, the 7 languages that your people need to hear, want to hear, and benefit most hearing. Because the love languages are great, but I don't need my boss to rub my back. Okay. So I don't need the physical touch aspect. There's certain things that don't apply to the work world. My book, the 7 Love Languages, is how do we do these things? Here are the 7 things that make or break all relationships, even with yourself. Know how to do them consistently. And these things have to be easy and common sense, or else people aren't going to do it. And my son is 18. My daughter's 21. They're in relationships with other people, with themselves, with their teams. And once you can get love down and you can understand love, and it's not simply doing it when you feel like it or when you feel they bully word deserve it. Can you and will you do it when you don't feel like it? When they've irked you to the nth degree? And how do we do that? So I would really say the Dream Manager. I would say the 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman, and 7 Ways to Love. The abridged versions, I like an easy read, and it's life-changing when you apply it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Five love languages, that was huge for me. I read it like 3 years ago. And just like you said, like you could show up how you think someone wants, but it's normally how you want it. And if you don't really communicate that, you could find yourself in a world of hurt. And it's just because you weren't listening, you were talking too much, right? And talking to yourself a lot of the times is the problem. So no, that's so fire. I'm curious to know, and this is just for me. Have you ever read The Four Agreements?
I've heard of it. I have it on my list, the four agreements. I'm writing it in my notes now.
Yeah, phenomenal book as well. Yeah, I'm sure you'll love it, and I look forward to connecting on that. But so the next thing that I want to ask is, knowing what you know now and how much wiser you are, one of the questions that I always ask everyone is, if you could go back in your journey and change something, and I understand that a lot of times people say I wouldn't change anything because that's what got us here, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I personally don't feel like that's the truth. I feel like if we know what we know now, there is one thing that we would go back and change. Now, maybe our path would have been a little bit different, but we still would have changed that. But the better question, I guess we could even phrase it as, is if there was one thing that you wish that you would have implemented sooner to be able to accelerate your path on your dream and your journey and your vision, what would that one thing be?
You hit the nail right on the head. I was going to say I wouldn't change anything. However, the concept that I would have applied is what I call the get great question. And it's along the same path of everything that we've been talking about throughout this is, hey, I want to be great here. What do I have to do? And then shutting up and listening, and then applying what they said to a degree that I'm most comfortable with to get what I want. And whether that was playing football, I play sports at every level. And not once did I ever ask that question. I worked hard. I became a leader. I took football farther than most. However, I would have went a lot farther if I would have sat down and asked my coach, what is it that you need most from me right now? Because we think that those in positions of leadership are true leaders, and they're not all the time. Most of the time, they're managing. They're so busy protecting their job, they don't know how to build their people. You know, so I sit down with university athletics. So you got the football guys, everybody's testosterone up, chest out, everything. And I say, raise your hand here if you want to be great. Well, one, that's an assumption that everybody wants to be great. Not everybody really does. Some people are there because they want to hang out with their friends. Some people are there because they got the scholarship. Some people are there because whatever it is. Not everybody wants to be great, but most will raise their hand because it seems like the right thing to do.
Right.
So everybody raises their hand. I said, well, who here has asked their coach, I want to be great here. What do I need to do? When I come back 20 years from now, I want to bring my kids and I want them to see my name on something, a building, a trophy. What do I need to do? How many here have asked that question? 2 on average out of 80. And the coaches haven't given a response to that because they're busy coaching, doing. They're busy being busy. Same thing in organizations. Same thing in our relationships. Now, here's the biggest tip, though. When I started teaching this get great question to the people who would ask it to their leaders, I naively did not know that I had to train the leaders on how to answer it. Because the one company I was doing it for, I spoke to their employees and they said, yeah, I asked the get great question. And my boss said what so many bosses, your wife, your husband, whomever are going to say. And they're going to say this, oh, Cass, just keep doing what you're doing. It's a dagger to your motivation. Because if I keep doing what I'm doing, that means I should get what I want. How many bully words did I just say in there? Right? So I had to teach the leader. So whether someone asks you, this is how, thanks so much for asking that question. Wow, let me give it some thought and let's sit down and talk about it. Now, what I realized, why did so many people say, just keep doing what you're doing? Number one, because they're busy. They're busy being busy. They got a tornado of crap going on in their mind at Mach speed, just like you do. You've been thinking about how to approach them and now ask this. You listen to, the DreamNation. You've got it prepared. It's out of the blue for them that you're asking them this. So one, they're busy. Two, maybe they don't know if you can handle their truth. Three, maybe they have no idea of a real answer. Or four, maybe they just got to pee and you caught them on their way to the bathroom. Who knows? So we want to give them permission, because I'll do it with my wife sometimes. Honey, I want to be the greatest husband in the world to you. What do you need from me? You know, I get hit by a bus tomorrow. You'll find somebody else. You're a good looking woman. You're a great woman. You'll find somebody else, but you won't be like me. What do you need? And she'll say, I'll just keep doing what you're doing. Everything's good. Don't believe that now.
Right.
So I said, hey, listen, I appreciate that, but I really do want to know. We got to affirm that it's okay. Give them permission and permission to have time to think. You know, I want to ask you again later in the week. And if the answer's still the same, then great. If not, I really do want to know. We have to let them know and give them permission to really answer our question, because it's a sensitive topic. And once they share it, we as leaders cannot defend, dukes up and ready to fight, or deflect, and I'm never speaking to you again based off of what they said. We asked. Now we need to be able to consume without responding. And then we apply. If it's reasonable, doable, and fair, we're going to do it. And we're going to do it a little bit outside our comfort zone. Not so much that we get frustrated and bitter and wind up hating them in the task. So my wife loves projects, home projects. In the beginning, I said, all right, I'm going to click on my man button and I'm going to do this. And I hated it. And I realized that we don't play well in the same sandbox together. And it became a bigger problem. So now, if my wife needs a man to do that, then I'm probably not the one that she needs to be with. I don't like it. I don't want to do it. And our relationship is worse for it. You know, so I'm more willing to help pay for it, you know, or I can, hey, you need a glass of water? Or I got the kids while you do that, because she loves doing that. So,
man, there's so much. I was loving it. That's why I didn't want to intercept. I definitely didn't. There's so much wisdom there. And I think the first thing that I asked myself, why don't we do that? Because I was going to just the same route, right? Like, not just asking your boss, asking your spouse, like even asking your child, like, hey, you know, I try to be the best father I could be. What do you think I could do a little bit better, you know, to be, and your kids are going to say, I don't know. And it's like, you know what? I will come back, you know, later on in the week, and I want to give you permission, because I want to make sure that I'm giving everything to you, because I know that our time here is sacred, and however you want to take it from there. But I think where people struggle with that is it's the power of being vulnerable to feel like you don't have all of the answers, right? Because in the beginning, we always got to feel like, oh, we're good. We already know. That's why we're living this life this way. And when you say like, hey, no, what can I do better? That makes it seem like that you already have some flaws. And most people want to show up as flawless rather than flawed.
well, and a lot of people are willing to add something. So I asked, what can I do? And it, even in our language, remember, we go back to leadership language. What can I do more? We have to be prepared as leaders of our own lives to maybe they need less. Because I did what you said. I asked my son, and I'm big on dream development, and you hear how I talk. Like in my life with my kids, there's 5 different types of leaders. I'm a motivator. In other aspects, I'm something else. We all play all 5, giving the situation or the people that need it. However, I tend to be very motivating. What's your dream? Okay, boom, let's go. When I asked the Get Great question to my son, who's now 18, he said, Dad, I need you to back off. So we sometimes are willing to do more, but what happens when they need you to do less?
Powerful.
And I said, oh, that goes against everything I am. Tell me about that. So what I learned is all your kids are going to be different. You know, my 20-year-old doesn't listen, and she's so independent that she does her own thing. The 18-year-old who said this is very quiet, and he'll do it, but he's not going to do it when you see it. He's not going to do it when you're watching. He's hard to coach. His coach can coach him, but he won't let me coach him. So I had to back off and trust that he was going to be doing these things on his time. And once I backed off, these things started to come to fruition. He was just in the paper 2 weeks ago for having the breakout game of his life. So he was able to do those things. My other son, I can coach up all day. We still throw in the snow and in the rain. He said, look, if Aaron Rodgers is playing in January in Green Bay, I need to be throwing in January here in Pennsylvania. He's so easy. Can you do leadership when it's not easy and someone needs actually some less of you? So it was marrying what he needed, but also me still needing to be a dad and have some expectations.
Yeah,
and we were able to marry that, and it worked out.
That's super powerful. And what I was looking for, which I was glad that I didn't hear, and I think somebody else would be thinking it the same way, is what you said. The response that you said was, that goes against everything. But here's the reason why I'm doing it, right?
No
Because
buts.
that's
That's
not,
bully words.
those are huge, right? That was the bullying word. But then at the same time, that's what a lot of us would have resulted to. But the reason why I'm doing it, and so that's the way that you evolve your mindset. And I have multiple stories like that I could share as well. But I was just like, I loved hearing that. It was just, yeah, here's how I'm going to do better. That goes against everything. But tell me more about that. I want to hear how we can make this a win-win for both of us. I don't want to be all on your neck, and so that was very powerful, my brother. And I hope somebody else, man or woman, they hear that, and I'm sure they can resonate with it. That is so powerful.
Simplest thing for but, replace but with a semicolon, a slight pause. Hey, I hear that. Most people will say but, and then anything after but is blaming or bullcrap, and people turn off, they get defensive. Take out but and put a semicolon, a pause. Hey, I hear you. Pause. Can you tell me more about that? Hey, I hear you. Here's pause. Here's my concern. How do we create this win-win? Because I hear what you're saying. This over here is not wrong. How do we mesh it so you get to where you said you want to be?
Man, so that's right there. That can change someone's life just by doing that one thing. That is potentially your raise. That is potentially your job opportunity. That is potentially your marriage. That is everything right there. And so I pray somebody really rewinds that and they take 5 seconds and just try to implement that 5 times a day, because then it will become a habit that will be ingrained in your vision. And it will be everything you need to change your life, no matter where you are in this step.
And here, Cass, and you guys listening, here's a final tip if we still have time. One of my rules in my Leaders 3 is this: please accompany your problem with a suggested solution. So whether your problem is with your kids, whether your problem is with your wife or your husband or your boss, your employee, most people are going to complain and gripe about it, and then it makes someone defensive or deflect, and it's hard for you to get what you want. So whatever your problem is, invest some time before you bring it to the person. Here's my solution. Hey, I have an idea, Cass. I would love to know what you like about it and if there's anything you'd fine tune. I call it a leader's idea. We've done some solution and did leadership on our end, coming up with an idea. Then in order, what do you like about it? Make somebody say something good about it first, because whatever they say is more important and true to them than you telling them what was good about it. And then what would you fine tune? That's a power word, not a bully word, because it suggests that things are really good, are already good about the idea. You're asking them to now they can put their ego into it and make it even better. So, hey, honey, I have an idea. I really want to be able to travel more. I love how we are when we do that. I was thinking we could do this. What do you like about it? And if there's anything you would change about it, what would you fine tune about it? And then just listen. Right. You're already on a better path than when you started.
So much wisdom. This has been phenomenal. I just got a couple last questions for you. I think the first question that I want to ask is, if you could have lunch or dinner with anyone dead or alive in the world, who would it be? And more specifically, what question would you ask them?
Here's full disclosure and real life stuff right now. I didn't bring down my power cord, so my battery is low. The other thing, who would I sit down with, is easy. I just had this conversation. I do the question of the week with my audience, social media, and my kids, and my wife too. And we just talked about this. So it would be Jesus. It would be the devil, which sounds really weird, but I'll tell you why. And my older self.
One person.
I got to go with Jesus then.
Jesus, what would you ask him?
Can you explain life and death to me? That would be my question.
That's powerful. Nobody said that. That's where it gets, because it's just asking somebody who would they have lunch or dinner with. They can always come up with that one person, Elon Musk, all these other things. But when you ask them what specific one question would they ask him, that's where you really got to get concise, because now you're thinking, what do I admire about that person? What has been so innovating to me about that person? And so that's where I always like to ask it. And I think a lot of people answer the question first, but on that second part, they always have to go, But no, I think that's powerful. Explain to me life and death. I think that we would all want to hear. We would all want to be a fly on the wall.
I love to hear it. There's a book out there called Dinner with a Perfect Stranger by Mitch Albom. And it's about a guy who receives what he thinks is a joke from people in his office to have dinner with Jesus. And then so he goes to the dinner and Jesus comes and sits down with him. And he's like, oh, this can't, you're not Jesus. Like, who put you up to this? And the more questions that he asked and the answers that Jesus gave, he's like, whoa. And so slowly he's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And that book was really just, and I'm big on a nerd on my craft. That's the one fiction outside of my lane book that just, wow.
That's the book you should have named earlier.
Our conversation led me somewhere else there.
It's all good. We got another one. We got another one out of him. So we're all good. Dinner with a Stranger. We'll be sure to look that one up. And then the last question I have is, there's somebody out there that love you. They love your story. They love the inspiration, the motivating tone that you have, the inspirational tone. But they still have that little voice in their head, and we've always had. And that little voice says that they're not strong enough. They're not smart enough, or maybe they just don't have enough resources. What's the one thing that you would leave that person with to get them to just take action?
My thing is, at some point with your dream, with your vision and vision factors, it's not enough to have your vision. What are the 3 to 5 things, those vision factors, that when you do them consistently, the vision takes care of itself? And at some point on that journey, you will be the only one that believes in you. And that's going to be okay. That's got to be okay. And the people who don't believe in you, is not always because they're hating on you. Maybe they're cautious because they love you. Maybe because they never did anything like that. They don't want to see you hurt. Maybe they failed. Maybe they see the current results and are thinking from a safety perspective instead of a growth perspective. So not everybody that doesn't believe is hating. And at the end of the day, it's all about what you believe. So there were times in my business where I was the only one that believed in me, but I knew I wasn't going to fail. And when you do those vision factors consistently, not just when you're motivated on a Monday, not just when it's January 1st, New Year's, when you do them consistently and you don't stop. Most people stop and they have a very noble reason why they stopped. My mom's sick, the kids, I got a second job. So what? And I don't want to minimize your pain and your life. I've been there. You've been there. Everybody's going to be there. It's always going to be something. Never stop. And it's amazing how much farther you'll get from everything and anyone else.
Love it. But there you have it, Dream Nation. For anybody, first off, I want to be the first one to say thank you. And I appreciate you, my brother. For anyone who wants to stay connected with you, we'll make sure that we put all of your links in the show notes. But where can they find you at?
youevolvingnow.com. So YOU evolvingnow.com. And there you'll have access to my videos, podcasts, blogs every week, and so much more. And whether it's the services and speaking engagements and my Evolving Lead program, my books, everything is all right there in the great hub for you. And I love Zoom calls. So if someone wants to reach out and connect, I want to talk to the people who are interested. And just if it's simple as getting to know you, meet and chat, or if there's more of actually doing something together and being of impact, let's talk.
There you have it. Well, Dream Nation, just as he said, you have a dream, but you have to create that vision. And what are the habits that make that vision take care of itself? And that means that you have to execute, because if you don't execute, that dream that you have as we know it will only merely be a fantasy. That's all for this one. We'll catch you on the next one. That's all we got for this episode. Thank you for sticking around. That truly means a lot to me, and hopefully that means that we delivered massive value on this one. If you haven't already, the way that you could say thank you to myself and the team is just by heading over to iTunes and leaving a review and a rating. That's what iTunes loves to see. That's how we get out there even more. And I would definitely be grateful for it. I know the team would as well. Do me a favor and head on over to DreamNationPodcast.com. That's where you're going to be able to find all of the resources that we talked about in today's episode, as well as more exclusive content. And you'll also be able to sign up to our email list where we have more more exclusive content. And we always love to hear the feedback from you all because you're our tribe. So remember, in the dream we trust, we'll see you on the flip side.